Hi, how are you? Welcome back to my channel. I have a big fat book haul for you today. There are a lot of books here because I have been collecting over the last month or two. I have ARCs and new releases from authors and publishers. I have Christmas gifts, and I have books that I bought myself. So, some of these you maybe haven't heard of. I have some special editions that are really gorgeous. I actually even went into public and went book shopping, if you can believe that. Yeah, as you all know, I don't really go into public very often because I have a hard time, dealing with crowds and all that, but I even went into public. So, yeah, let's get into it. We'll start with books that I was sent by authors and publishers, then we'll get into Christmas books that I got for Christmas, and then we'll get into books that I bought myself. My lava lamp isn't even heated up all the way yet, so whatever, we're working with what we have. So, first one is Something in the Blood. This one is by H.H. Micah, and I love this cover. There's something so haunting about it, you know what I mean? That red right in the middle of the snowy background, it's so pretty. This one was sent to me by the author. It's set in a small town called Blood Run, Alaska, and there is a very grisly murder where the victim is found sawed in half. There's this small town detective, Terry, who is trying to solve the case, and he is haunted by his past duties, whatever that means. He and his partner, Eddie, are trying to solve the case. Meanwhile, other bodies, other victims are just stacking up. Apparently, this town has a deep history. It says, as their list of suspects dwindles and they become more immersed in the town's sinister folklore, Terry begins to wonder if the killer is just some small town oddity who believes in these evil legends, or if there's something more to them, something in the blood. So yeah, really interested in this. I had a cousin who lived in Alaska, and I was always really fascinated with the surroundings, and he's always taking these really gorgeous pictures, and just it was always looked so remote. Whenever he sent me the synopsis and I knew it was set in Alaska, I was very interested. So next up we have Interview with the Devil. This is an anthology. You guys know I love Michael Harbron's writing style. I was very much immersed in the Interview with the Devil series. I've read 2 of the series. I have a couple more that I need to read. I'm going to be reading those very soon. And he sent me this brand new anthology. Super excited to be back into that world. And this has some of the original characters within these stories and that original world. And I am stoked about this. Next up, we have Son of a Serial Killer by Andrew Adams. Glenn is in his early 30s. He's a data clerk and he hates it. Well, his alcoholic mother lets slip one day that his father, who he's never known, was actually an infamous serial killer from like the 70s and 80s. And yeah, Glenn is having to come to terms with that. And all these people who knew his father are either, some of them are kind of standing behind Glenn and offering their support, and others want Glenn completely gone because they remember his father's heinous crimes and all this. So Glenn is really like having to come to terms with that. It says, Glenn must come to terms with who he truly is and navigate pressure from all angles to either walk in his father's shadow or break free from it for good. So yeah. This one comes out in May. Next up, we have The Furious Others by Ashley Baker. This one I was very intrigued by as well, because this one doesn't put focus on the killer, it puts focus on the victims. In typical serial killer novels, the victims are a footnote. In this book, they're the whole story. The 10 victims in The Furious Others lived ordinary lives until serial killer Jason Ledown entered stage left, knife in hand, with a belly full of bad intentions. That's where fear is found, in the space between a typical Friday and a man intent on murder. The fictional characters in The Furious Others depict real people, mothers, lovers, hip-hop aficionados, and green thumbs, untied by the tragedy of lost lives. Author and clinical psychologist Dr. Ashley Baker, PCYD, envisions a fictional world where the murderer is not the main character in the serial killer trope. Instead of exploring Jason Ledown's methods of madness, Dr. Baker chooses to honor the victims rather than romanticize monsters. As a condition of Jason Ledown's purgatory, those he harmed reflect on their humanity, proving they're more than crime scene photos or roadside crosses. In this multiple point of view novel, the deceased blaze a fast-paced trail, recounting their last moments with tentacles of grief stretching across timelines. That sounds very original. And also very powerful. Next we have Tales from Beyond the Closet. This one is by Dalton Primo. These dark tales celebrate LGBTQIA+ culture, horror, and unforgivable carnage. Each story includes a highly relatable cast of characters, along with imaginative plot lines that occasionally tip into the realm of the absurd. That sounds so fun. From haunted coffee tables to a menacing 7-year-old and ravenous plants, every tale is saturated with blood, gore, and sly social commentary. So yeah, this is a book of short stories, and it sounds like a freaking blast. Also, I love a good pink cover. This one was sent to me by Novel Suspects and Hatchet Book Group, and it is Alter Ego by Alex Segura. So this follows Annie. Annie is an acclaimed filmmaker. She's an author. She's a comic book artist. She's known for one of the all-time best superhero comics in recent memory, but she's never been able to tackle her longtime favorite superhero, the legendary Lynx. Only known to the most die-hard comics fans, the Lynx went out of print and the rights were never available until now. Annie is skeptical of who is making an offer. Burt Carlyle's father started Triumph Comics and has long acclaimed ownership of the Lynx. When Annie starts getting anonymous messages urging her not to trust anyone, her inner alarms go off. Even worse, Carlyle wants to pair her with a disgraced filmmaker for a desperate media play. Annie, who has been called a genius, a sellout, a visionary, a hack, and everything else under the sun, is sick of the money grab. For the first time since she started reading a tattered copy of the legendary Lynx #1 as a kid, she feels a pure creative spark. The chance to tell a story her way. She's not about to let that go, even if it means uncovering the dark truth about the character she loves. That sounds so freaking fun. Like, that sounds like a blast too. The next two were sent to me by Simon & Schuster. First one is Coming Up Urkel by Jaleel White. Of course, this is his memoir. And this tells about, him on the show. It tells about his life growing up. It tells about some of the other famous people that he came across along the way. And I'm really excited to read this one. I freaking loved the show growing up. And yeah, I loved him. I was a huge fan. So I was excited to get a hold of this one. And then we have Aftertaste by Daria Lavelle. This is supposed to be really interesting and unique. It says you're invited to New York City's most unforgettable culinary experience. You bring the memories, we'll bring the ghosts, literally. Reader, what are you hungry for? Not just in your reading experience, but in your life. Is it love you crave? Success? Closure? Is it that most electric of desires, the need to feel alive? Or maybe it's simpler, a good meal, a good memory, a way to connect with the people you love, the people you've lost just one more time. The characters you're about to meet yearn for all these things. Aftertaste is a book about food and ghosts and the uncanny connection between them. It's about kitchens and falling in love and learning to let go. Mostly, though, it's about all the ways we hunger and how far we go to find satisfaction. This one comes out May 20th, 2025. The next 5 were all sent by Bobby Media and Inkshares. So they partnered together to send all these. They sent me 3 together these are all murder mysteries. So this one is The Unforgiven Dead by Fulton Ross. This is going to be a TV series. It says here now developed for TV. The synopsis on this one is long. It says a Scottish detective fiction and Gaelic lore. So this has to do with folklore, and this guy is dealing with a lot of guilt because apparently it says there's somebody that it says you could have saved her. So he's haunted by this. So there are these murder victims, and it says more will die unless Angus does what he must, close his eyes and see. And it has to do with this ancient folklore. And there's a pattern with these murders, and there are going to be others if he doesn't close his eyes and see, based on this folklore. So there's more to it than that, but it's very long. So if I read all of these like to full length, we're going to be here forever. But yeah. Then we have A Gentleman's Murder by Christopher Wong, and An Auspicious Debut Mystery. Oh, this one is set in the 20s. The main character in this one is a Lieutenant Eric Peterkin. The Great War is going on, and he's just been granted membership into this very prestigious soldiers-only club, and it's in London, but in this club there's a murder. So somebody is stabbed, and it brings about this whole mystery about who the killer is. So this lieutenant is trying to figure out who it is, and it takes him on this whole journey and he has to go to all these places to try to figure it out. So yeah, this is set in the 20s in London, and yeah, it's a whole thing during the Great War, and it sounds really cool and really interesting, and I really love that setting too. And this has deckled edges. Deckled edges is one of those things I either love or I hate, and it depends on the book. As long as I'm not annotating and putting tabs and crap in it, I'm cool, and I don't think I'm going to be tabbing this one, so I freaking love that setting. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Unnatural Ends by, again, Christopher Wong. This is really fun with the puzzle pieces. Okay, this sounds really cool. Sir Lawrence Linwood is dead. He was killed in his own study with a medieval mace. His 3 adopted children have to return home, but there's a catch. His last testament contains like a strange provision in the will that his estate shall go to the heir who solves his murder. Which is tricky. Like, did he know he was going to be murdered? That's so interesting. All 3 of them have to go do some digging and figure out like who the person was that killed him. And it said at the end, it says they come to suspect that the killer lurks in the mysterious origins of their own births. That sounds wild and really interesting. And like, did he know he was going to be murdered? I have questions about that. The final 2 that was sent to me by the publishers, same publisher, the same Obi Media and Inkshares, and these are by the same author. A God in the Shed, J.F. Dubois, and also Song of the Sandman. So these are part of a duology. This is set in a small town. What's really interesting about the small town is there's a huge cemetery, and the cemetery is too large and too full for such a small town because there has been a serial killer there for the last 2 decades. And he has eluded police for this whole time. They haven't been able to figure out who it is. Well, he's caught. It's not until after Inspector Stephen Crowley finally catches the killer that the town discovers even darker forces are at play. And then, like I said, that was part 1, and then this is part 2. So I won't tell you what it's about, but those are a duology. Okay, we'll go into the ones that I got for Christmas. Well, not just Christmas, but these are gifts for various different things. I was sent this recently by my friend Erin. She doesn't have a YouTube, but she has an Instagram, and I will link it down below. This has been on my wish list for a long time. This is called Mouth. Like, check out how cool this freaking cover is, by the way. It is so wicked. And it's by Joshua Hull. She tells me that this is really good. She's already read it. She says it's really good, and it's like the found family trope, which I love. And it says, after a stranger leaves him a secluded property, Drifter Rusty finds himself the caretaker of a massive, tooth-filled mouth in the ground, and it's hungry. His situation is complicated by Abigail, a wannabe filmmaker who stumbles upon the secret. Together, the odd pair set out to discover the origins of Mouth and the hidden history of its former owner, setting in motion an outlandish scheme that could endanger them all. Doesn't that sound wild? That sounds so cool. The next 2 I was sent by Leslie, who is the Grim Hobbyist. She does have a YouTube channel. I will link it down below. And first one is Finley Donovan Knocks 'Em Dead. This is by El Cosimano. Do you guys remember I read part 1 and I didn't have part 2, and I was pretty bummed about it? Now I have part 2. So I'll be reading this really soon because part 1 left it to where you wanted to have part 2 immediately, and I didn't have it. So super excited about this. If you guys don't remember, this part 1 follows Finley, and she's an author. And she's also a single mom. She's going through a separation. She's going through a divorce. She's really having a hard time. Like, she's pretty broke. And she's kind of in breach of her contract with her book, her latest book. And so she's struggling to like come up with a new book. Well, she's in a Panera Bread of all places, and she's overheard talking about like this book idea. This lady over here is thinking it's like real life, and she thinks that she is a contract killer for hire. So she offers her a huge sum of money to like off her husband, this lady's husband, and Finley inadvertently accepts the offer. So it's like a whole thing. So yeah, it's really funny. It's like she gets herself into all these messes, and if she doesn't get herself into messes, her babysitter, Vera, she gets her into messes too. The two of them together are just really great. They're like, Vera's really snarky, and she's one of those people that would be really funny to be around. But I just thought it was hilarious. It was very witty and just a lot of fun. It didn't take too much thinking. It was just something that I could just sit back and relax with. And just, it was a freaking blast. Just absolutely hilarious. Even the side characters were really good. And I just had a good time with it. And I'm so excited to see what she gets up to in this one. The other one that Leslie sent me was This Delicious Death, and this one is by Kayla Cottingham. This one has been on my list for a long time as well. 2 years ago, a small percentage of the population underwent a transformation known as the hollowing. Those affected were only able to survive by consuming human flesh. The people who went without quickly became feral, turning on their friends and family. Luckily, scientists were able to create a synthetic version of human meat that would satisfy their hunger. As a result, humanity slowly began to return to normal. Cut to Zoe, Celeste, Valeria, and Jasmine, 4 hollow girls living in Southern California. As a last hurrah before graduation, they attend a musical festival in the heart of the desert. They have a cooler filled with seltzer, vodka, and sin flesh, and are ready to party. But on the first night of the festival, Val goes feral and ends up killing and eating a boy in one of the bands. As other festival guests start disappearing around them, the girls soon discover someone is targeting people like them. If they can't figure out how to stop it, and soon no one at the festival is getting out alive. Oh my god. That sounds so fun. And also really crazy. This I got from Christmas from my stepdaughter. She's 19, so it's okay. But yeah, first one. These are actually part 1 and 2. Psychic Teenage Bloodbath by Carl John Lee. I saw Katrina Brown read this originally, and she had a really good review. I knew I had to read it. I've also seen Cliff with Cliff's Dark Gems read this. Also a really good review. So anyways, I knew I had to have this book, so it was on my list. This is a Carrie retelling, but it's extreme, and it's supposed to be really amazing. I've heard nothing but good things about it. And then she also got me part 2. So I have 1 and 2. These covers are like amazing. Aren't they so cool? But yes, you tell me Carrie retelling, and then you make it extreme, and like, how could I not get it? How could I not? So yeah, I was really excited. It's so funny because my husband was like, hey, she wants to know what you want for Christmas, like what books you want me to tell her. And I was like, dude, all the books I have on my list are weird. I feel weird telling her about it because they all like had carnage or bloodbath or like all these words at all, and I'm like, she's gonna think I'm weird. He's like, no, it's fine. So anyways, she didn't judge me, so that's good. Thank you so much to Katrina and Cliff for putting that on my radar. Appreciate it. And next, I got Junji Ito's Cat Diary. This is about his experience with cat ownership, but make it horror. Leave it to Junji Ito to make cats terrifying. Like, and look at this cover. Is this not amazing? Like, look at it. And there's also like a face on the cat's butt. I haven't like flipped through to see the art, but I can only imagine. I think it's supposed to be, I believe, funny and scary. So, I mean, it's Junji Ito. So, master of Japanese horror manga, Junji Ito presents a series of hysterical tales chronicling his real-life trials and tribulations of becoming a cat owner. So fun. I went to an actual bookstore in public, like I said, and this one was one that I saw on the shelf and was drawn to it because of the colors. And look how pretty. Lovecraft County by Matt Ruff. It's so gorgeous. So gorgeous. And look at the spine too. So cool. That's the horror, the most awful thing, to have a child the world wants to destroy and know that you're helpless to help him. Nothing worse than that. Nothing worse. And I agree. I don't know exactly what it's about. That's all I know. I believe this is part of a series. And I would really like to know if there are others that, like, if the rest of the series matches this. I think this is a special edition, but I'm going to have to see if I can get, like, more of this set, like, that matches, because it's so freaking pretty. But I know for sure this touches on, like, there's, like, commentary on racism in here. I know for sure. But otherwise, I don't know much about it, just that it was really pretty. I'm all about, like, impulse buying. This is why I can't go to the store, because I just buy things and I have no idea what the hell I'm buying. And then I went to Half Price Books and I got 3 R.L. Stine books. So I got Twisted. So this one is about Abby, and she's trying to join this sorority, and she'll do pretty much anything to join them. Anything. Unfortunately, she has to go through the initiation, and this year's initiation is murder. So, could get a little sketchy. Then I got The Thrill Club. This is a Fear Street book. This one follows Talia. Talia writes these scary stories, and she likes to star her friends in the stories. Well, the stories start to come true, like they start to really happen, and her friends start actually dying. And so they're trying to figure out, like, is Talia making her stories come true, or is someone else trying to make the stories come to life? So then we have The New Year's Party. This is a Fear Street super chiller. PJ wasn't supposed to die. It was just a practical joke. No big deal. But PJ had a bad heart. The kids at Reenie's Christmas party couldn't tell the police what they'd done, so they hid the body and then it disappeared. Now someone is killing them, one by one. Someone is taking PJ's revenge, but who? By midnight they'll know, because when the clock chimes, they'll all get a kiss, the kiss of death. I haven't read any of those 3. I don't believe, unless I start reading them and I'm like, oh yeah, now I remember. This was another impulse buy same day whenever I went to the bookstore. And again, I'd never seen it before, but I was drawn to the cover. Look how cool it is. It's so pretty. And then I read the synopsis and I was like, yeah, I definitely have to have that. It's called Open Throat, and it's by Henry Hoke. Now I gotta read you the synopsis, because me explaining it is not going to do it any justice. I have to read it to you. A queer and dangerously hungry mountain lion lives in the drought-devastated land under the Hollywood sign. Lonely and fascinated by humanity's foibles, the lion spends their days protecting a nearby homeless encampment, observing hikers complain about their trauma, and in quiet moments grappling with the complexities of their gender identity, memories of a vicious father, and the indignities of sentience. When a man-made fire engulfs the encampment, the lion is forced from the hills down into the city the hikers call LA. But even when salvation finally seems within reach, they are forced to face down the ultimate question: do they want to eat a person or become one? Henry Hoke's celebrated book, Open Throat, is a marvel of storytelling, a universal journey through a wondrous and menacing world, recounted by a lovable mountain lion. Feral and vulnerable, profound and playful, Open Throat is a star-making novel that brings the mythic to life. That sounds really interesting. And I love that they used a mountain lion as the main character. I bought Long Buried. This one is by our very own E.D. Lewis from E.D. Lewis Reviews. He has a YouTube channel. I will link it down below. I've heard him mention this book, and I knew I had to have it. So I'm going to be reading this one very soon as well. It's a short story, and I'll read you the back. Home is where the heart is, at least that's what they say. Coming home can bring back memories, some good and some best left forgotten. Garrison returns home to help his mother move, but he must face the darkness he left behind before it consumes him in his childhood home. I believe this is a like a gothic tale. If I know E.D. Lewis, it is. So I'm excited to read it. Next, of course, I had to get Grady Hendrix's new book, which is Witchcraft for Wayward Girls. This is a bunch of unwed teen girls who are pregnant, and they are in this wayward home. Everything they do is controlled by the adults, like everything. And one day, one of the girls is given an occult book of witchcraft from a librarian. And all of a sudden, they have all this power that they don't normally have. And it says, but power can destroy as easily as it creates, and it's never given freely. There's always a price to be paid, and it's usually paid in blood. So, yep. Then I got Sugar by Mia Ballard. Look how freaking pretty this cover is. I'm obsessed. Satara is unhinged and unwell. All I need to know. I'm there, right? When 35-year-old Satara Stratton discovers her husband Dean's treacherous affair with her best friend Lila, she plunges into familiar territory, deceit and death. Having disposed of men before without a hitch, she finds a new thrill in this betrayal. But with Lila on a crusade to expose her guilt, Satara must outpace everyone to keep her secrets safe. Her fate intertwines with Millicent Garcelle, a love witch whose tempting spells seem a perfect solution to Satara's woes. With newfound power at her fingertips, she gleefully manipulates the affections of those around her. Yet Satara's lust for love proves ultimate downfall, and she soon learns that while it's easy to bend others to her will, controlling her own heart is a perilous art indeed. Prepare for a darkly compelling journey, where the boundaries of desire and devastation blur, and the quest for love becomes Satara's most lethal game. Yes. Yes, please. Sounds freaking amazing. I got Haruki Murakami's new book, which is The City and Its Uncertain Walls. I freaking love Murakami's work. When a young man's girlfriend mysteriously vanishes, he sets his heart on finding the imaginary city where her true self lives. His search will lead him to take a job in a remote library with mysteries of its own. When he finally makes it to the walled city, a shadowless place of horned beasts and willow trees, he finds his beloved working in a different library, a dream library. But she has no memory of their life together in the other world, and as the lines between reality and fantasy start to blur, he must decide what he's willing to lose. A love story, a quest, an ode to books, and to libraries that house them, The City and Its Uncertain Walls is a parable for those strange times. Interesting. This is the latest Twisted or Treat book. It's called We Kept Her in the Cellar by W.R. Gorman. This is the smallest print ever for like a title I've ever seen, I think, on one of these books. Like, it's very small. But it is really gorgeous, though, the actual book, if you can see it very good with the glare. So there's the book. There's the spine. This is the back. We got like a Cinderella shoe here. It's got blood, it looks like, coming out of it. This is the spine. And I'll take the cover off of it. Of course, this is it's a Cinderella retelling. I kind of like this cover better without the dust jacket. It's really pretty. Really, really twisted. Not really pretty. And of course, it's signed. It looks nice and dark. And I also got this edition of The Wizard of Oz, and it has And Other Wonderful Books of Oz, The Emerald City of Oz, and Glinda of Oz. I thought this was really pretty. But look at the, okay, so look at the spine. So it starts with, you have the twister, the tornado, you have the house, go around, you have the Tin Man, you have the Scarecrow, the Lion, Toto, Dorothy, the Flying Monkeys. I feel like they could have done more with the inside cover though, but there's Toto, and there's Toto with the little butterfly. I mean, there are illustrations in the book, so if you go throughout the book, there are more illustrations. So, it's really pretty. This is by Penguin Books, by the way. So, but I do love the edges. This is by Penguin Books, for anybody that needs to know. Also, I got a clown book. I love clowns. This is Mortifier, and it's by Sarah DeRosa. Look how cute this cover is. It's freaking cute. This one follows Mort, and Mort has always wanted to be a clown because his cousin was a clown. His father had a traveling circus. He's 45 years old. His mother is kind of in control, and she has told him that he's too scary to be a clown. And, you know, she sounds like, she doesn't sound like too good of a person. But anyways, during a twilight stroll, Mort finds this little skunk. The skunk is injured, and he names the skunk Bulbous. He nurses the skunk back to health, and he forms this deep bond with him. On his birthday, not only does his mom tell him he has to abandon his dreams of becoming a clown, but she tells him that he has to abandon his pet skunk too, who he has formed this deep bond with. So he kind of loses it, and this plunges him into a psychological spiral. So he starts to hear Bulbous the skunk's sinister voice in his head. It says, join Mort and Bulbous on a darkly comedic journey through madness, self-discovery, and unexpected violence. Are you ready to be mortified? Does that not sound really unique and entertaining? Sounds so cool. And finally, I got this chunky book, and it is Dottie for You, Season 1. This is the whole Season 1, and it is by Regina Watts. This cover is so freaking amazing. This is a giant, like, big chunky book. But like I said, it's the Season 1. Dottie loves Harold. Harold loves Dottie. Harold and Dottie both love Dulcet. Read the complete first season of the flavorful billionaire love story that reads like American Psycho meets 50 Shades on a bad acid trip. Like, how could you not want to read that, right? Harold Fleetwood is pathetic. Despite being the billionaire CEO of a major Fortune 500 company, he's a divorcee in his mid-50s who can hardly look a woman in the eye. His dark compulsions and sick fantasies fill him with shame and leave the internet as his only outlet. Not just for titillation, but for intimacy, until the day he discovers bratty Dottie Shipman, the sexiest secretary in the office, has a dirty little secret she's been hiding. Turns out Dottie is as intrigued by taboo fantasies as Harold. Not only that, but she's the artist he's spent countless hours fantasizing with while wasting time in his filthy-minded chat room for fellow lonely perverts. He's terrified and thrilled. After all these years of hiding his intense, twisted desires from everyone except the prostitutes he employs, sharing himself with this almost too perfect woman seems like a recipe for deadly consequences from which no amount of money can save him. Lucky for Harold, Dottie's got another secret. An unbelievable secret. A secret that's destined to change everything. Yeah. That sounds so crazy. I got others. I had a bunch of others, but those I'm saving because they're for events and videos coming up, so they're surprises. So, yeah. I do have some really exciting things to show you guys coming up. Next week, I have 2 videos. My TBR game is picking my February reads, and I have, my other video will be my judging books by their covers, and it will be the scary editions. I'm going to be picking some scary looking books on my shelves, and I'm going to be reading them to see if they're as scary as they look. So, really excited about that one. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Thought that would be a really fun way to bring you along and just read some scary books. I'm always up for suggestions if there are any books you want me to try. if there are any videos you want me to try, if there's anything you want to see here. I will see you next Tuesday. Bye for now.